Hello, I'm Molly Preston. I'm a professional editor and I'm going to show you a bit about editing documentary style A-roll, B-roll projects. The first step is to organize your project file. You'll see here that I've created numbered bins to organize all of the elements of my project file. The top bin holds my sequences. You'll see just one sequence here. This is my current sequence. Within the Z old bin, I have all of my previous sequences. Notice that at the end of all of the sequence names, there's a date. Duplicating your sequence is very important. I like to duplicate my sequence every time I open Premiere. I'll right-click, select Duplicate, and then rename with today's date. Sometimes, if I'm making a major change to my edit, I'll duplicate my sequence even multiple times in the same day and just add an underscore and a number at the end. That way, if I'm experimenting with something and it's not working out, I can easily go back to my previous sequence. Duplicating your sequence is also very helpful when working with clients. Oftentimes, a client might ask for a change and then realize they liked what you had in a previous edit better. Instead of having to recreate that, you can just go back to that previous edit and copy the element the client liked and paste it into your current edit. Below sequences, I have a bin for prep. That is the main bin I work out of while I'm editing. It can contain things such as my selects, string outs, synced video and audio, and nests. I'll go over some of these bins within prep more in depth a little later. Below that, I have all of the footage. For this project, the footage was given to me based on the location where it was shot, and that's reflected here in the bin. Other times you may have the footage bins organized into dates, cameras, like A cam and B cam, or scenes. Below that is my audio bin, which contains production audio and music. It can also have your voiceover, sound effects, etc. And finally, I have a bin for general assets, which includes logos, titles, and colors. Black video, and for this project, I have a turquoise color mat. Syncing. The next step after organizing your bins is to sync your cameras, if you have more than one, and your audio. It's very important that you do this before starting to edit. Do not make any cuts until you have synced your cameras and your audio. There are multiple ways to do this, but I'll go over two. The clips I'll be syncing have a slate. Sometimes you might have to do an edit where there was not a slate, and this can be very time-consuming and a pain in the butt. Always use a slate, or at the very least, clap. First, I'll go over syncing visually. This was a 2-camera shoot. We have a medium shot here and then a close-up. I can look at the video and find the exact moment where the slate closes in each clip and line them up. If the cameras have reference audio, you can use the waveforms to visually sync. At the moment the slate claps, you'll see a short spike on the waveform. I can line these two clips up, matching where that spike occurs. I can do this with the separately recorded audio as well. Visually find that spike where the slate claps and line it up with your camera or cameras. The second option is a built-in tool in Premiere called Synchronize. To sync the clips this way, I'll stack the two clips on different tracks, select them both, right-click, and select Synchronize. You can also do this with your separately recorded audio. Interview selects. The first step in editing an A-roll, B-roll style project is to make your selects. I find it helpful to start with just going through the interviews and creating a talking heads edit. This is an edit with just the interviews where you find the story and pacing before adding any B-roll. In my prep bin, I have 4 different sequences and I work my way up from the bottom. The last sequence is where I have synced all of my video and audio. I duplicated that sequence to create the answers only sequence. I find it helpful to organize my interview footage based on the questions asked by the interviewer. You'll see I've added titles above my footage to indicate the general idea of the interviewer's question: name, about your office, advice, etc. You can also use markers, but I personally prefer the legacy title for this organization. The next step is to start making selects. I duplicated my answers only sequence and watched through all the footage, raising up selects from video track 1 to video track 2 that I like and might want to use in the edit. And finally, I duplicated the raise select sequence and deleted everything that I didn't raise up to make my selects only sequence. Jumping back into my sequences bin, you'll see these earlier edits still have my labels there. It's best to start out with more than you need and start cutting it down bit by bit until you have the best possible sound bites. One method I like to use is in the beginning to treat each of those labeled sections separately. Cut each one down to almost a standalone section that best answers the question. I will probably end up moving clips around to different sections, but this helps me get a good general feel for what direction the edit can go in. In my talking heads edit, I like to include places to pause and soak in what we've just heard before moving on to the next section. It's almost like having chapters or acts within your edit. If you don't include these pauses, it can be way too much to try to listen to non-stop talking without there ever being a breath. We need time to let the words soak in. B-roll. Once I feel pretty good about my talking heads cut, I move on to B-roll. Now that I'm very familiar with the subject matter, it'll be easier for me to pick out which pieces of B-roll are important. Back in my prep bin in B-roll, you'll see all B-roll, raised selects, and selects only. I've created these sequences in the same way I did with my interviews, but I didn't have to sync any audio or multiple cameras, so I only have 3 sequences in here rather than 4. You could also have different sequences based on the content of your B-roll. For example, maybe you have one sequence for exterior B-roll and another for interior. You can also add the titles like I did for my interview sequences to organize your B-roll within your sequence. When I add B-roll to my talking heads edit, I'll work with my selects only B-roll sequence. To help me remember which shots I've already used, I'll move used shots up from track 1 to track 2 so that I can easily see what's left for me to work with. When I'm adding B-roll, I'm looking for shots that relate to what the interviewees are saying, whether it's very literal, maybe I find a shot of the interviewee and the environment they're talking about, etc. I already have my built-in pauses in the talking heads edit, and when I add B-roll in, I can figure out what timing works for that pause before getting back to the interviews. B-roll is great for multiple reasons. It can show visually what the interviewee is talking about. It adds something visually interesting so the viewer doesn't get bored watching people's faces, and you can use it to cover cuts. For example, if an interviewee says or fumbles with their speech, you can cut up that clip so that you like how it sounds without having to worry about the jump cuts in the video. I'll show you an example. Here's a section of this video without any B-roll.
I'm passionate about being a dental assistant because I feel like we actually do make a change in this industry. We're helping people.
I really feel at the end of my day that I did something good.
I'm passionate about dental assisting because I love helping people and knowing that I made a difference.
It's not a one-person job. The office works when everybody's working together.
Now here's the same exact section with the B-roll.
I'm passionate about being a dental assistant because I feel like we actually do make a change in this industry. We're helping people.
I really feel at the end of my day that I did something good.
I'm passionate about dental assisting because I love helping people and knowing that I made a difference.
It's not a one-person job. The office works when everybody's working together.
Way more interesting, feels more cohesive, and we get to see the environment that's being talked about. So, there you have it. I could ramble on for hours about editing, but hopefully this gives you a little insight into how you can put together a documentary-style edit. Happy editing. Bloop.